Hey, Elizabeth. Welcome to the Holistic Hub podcast. I am so stoked to talk with you today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me today, Stephanie.
Well, I'm really excited because you recently just came on my radar. We were just chatting a little bit over Instagram, and those are sometimes the most fun conversations to have is when you're just meeting somebody and you get to really dive into their health story and just get to learn from them. So please share with me, share with the audience, what is it that brought you into the health world and all the stuff that you were doing for your clients today?
Love it. Are you okay if I dive a little bit into my story?
Yes, please. I want to hear everything.
This is going to kind of shock everyone probably, but my whole life I struggled with chronic health issues. And when I was a little girl, I had head to toe eczema, rosacea all over my face and body. I also had severe asthma. So I was on nebulizers, Singulair, all of the things. But when I was 13, I bumped into a girl at school who always had lice, and it triggered such severe OCD. I immediately called my mom. I'm like, I need to come home. I was counting everything. I wouldn't drive by the school. I wouldn't go back to school. I was homeschooled. I was put on severe antidepressants. And in just 1 year of being on the antidepressants, I ate my feelings away and I was over 200 pounds then. So 200 pounds, no confidence, rashes, itchiness all over my face, entire body. And gut health was not a thing back then, at all. It was medical doctors and medicine. And I got myself to a point where I ended up getting myself back to school, but I was still just not feeling my best self. So my friend was vegetarian. And I'm like, she looks amazing. Let's do vegetarian. So I went on this vegetarian diet. And with that and Dance Dance Revolution on Christmas break, I dropped my first 25 pounds and my skin started clearing up, cutting out the dairy and the gluten. And I started feeling better. But I was still stuck in this mindset of, I'm not good enough, low self-esteem. I was bullied a lot as a little girl. So I got very dogmatic about my diet. I went from vegetarian to vegan, then I went raw vegan, and then I went to something called the 80-10-10 diet. And for those of you that don't know what that is, it's basically you're living off of almost fruits only. It's 80% fruits, 10% fat, 10% protein, but all of it's coming from nuts, seeds, completely raw. So breakfast would be 10 bananas. Lunch would be 5 pounds of mangoes, and dinner would be a salad that you would think would feed a whole event, but for one person. And initially I started feeling better. And within 1 year, this was when I was going to college, I woke up one morning and everything changed. My entire life changed, I would say. I looked 6 months pregnant before even drinking a cup of water. I had 30 pounds of fluid in my stomach. I didn't know what was going on. I could not go to the bathroom. I started taking tons of laxatives. I went to every doctor, being dismissed. I went to top GI doctors, dismissed. I lost my cycle for over 7 years as well. And my hormones went completely postmenopausal. So my whole, college years, I was going for kinesiology. It was not normal college. It was 6 months pregnant looking, trying to follow this raw food diet, working with all the top people in the industry on that. I was over here trying to, on my spring breaks and everything, do gallbladder cleanses and herbal protocols and do all of every weekend I was going for a colonic and driving 2 hours just to get a colonic, having black coming out of my body. And I didn't know what was happening. I found one doctor, chiropractic doctor, who did stool testing on me. And we figured out I had 15 types of parasites. I had H. pylori so high, that's a gram-negative bacteria that causes stomach ulcers. I also had SIBO. I had mast cell activation, hence all of the, histamine reactions that I was having. And I was down, guys, to just very little food. At that point, I was working with the top person in the raw food industry, doing something called Banana Island. So for 1 month straight, just eating up to 50 bananas a day is supposed to give your digestive system a break, allow yourself to heal. No, I was not healing. I was on tons of laxatives and chronic pain, bloated, crying every day, doing everything that I could to try to get my health back with protocols protocols while being in college. And I went the medical route because I wasn't really into the holistic yet, did multiple courses of antibiotics for the parasites. And after going through all the die-off for a month on the medication, I would have them rehatch because it wouldn't get the eggs. So I would be back to square one. So kill all your gut microbiome and then boop, you're back feeling like horrible and have to do it all over again. And after going through this for my 4 years of college, I went to one final place. They were supposed to clean out your small intestine. There's something called mucoid plaque that could be in there. And they thought I had a blockage. I was doing their whole protocol. I was living in a hotel for 2 weeks and nothing would come out of me. So they sent me to the hospital. My mom flew down and no blockage, like nothing's wrong with you. And at this point, I'm like, how is nothing wrong with me? I feel so bad. I can't tolerate food. I can't go to the bathroom. Like I'm doing everything. I should be thriving. And I said, I am done killing all the stuff in my gut. I'm going to make my own protocol. So I took all the research that I've been researching every day and I made a 90-day protocol because that's the time it takes to kill the parasites, also get through the biofilms and get the eggs of the parasites that kept rehatching. And I focused on everything, restoring my gut microbiome, getting my colon to have the peristalsis back, improving my gut motility. And within those 90 days, I went from a 5:05 marathon, not pooping, chronic fatigue, 6 months pregnant, to a 3:35 marathon, abs, pooping daily, expanding my diet, and feeling so good. And that was kind of the start of my journey. After that, I moved to LA. I was very focused on building my body. I spent 5 years bulking up to 180 pounds. I put on tons of muscle. I cut. I started competing in bodybuilding and I launched my business and I was, working with people with body composition. And during that time, that's when COVID hit. And when COVID hit, I was in a relationship. It was not the best. My stress got very high. And all of a sudden, everything started coming back. I started reacting to food again. I got to a place where I was having like irregular cycles. They thought I had PCOS. They found cysts on my ovaries. I moved back to Miami and everything kept getting worse. What happened was I started getting histamine reaction. So even eating things like white rice, my nose would water, my eyes would water. I started getting chronic anxiety, crippling, even though I'm a happy person, to where they were putting me on Xanax. I felt like I had rheumatoid arthritis through my entire body. It was so hard to even bend over. And I knew something wasn't right. But again, my blood work looked fine. The doctor's like, nothing's wrong with you. So what I decided to do is, of course, take everything into my own hands. I went back to school, holistic nutrition, GAPS practitioner, and functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner. And I ran mold testing on me. I found out that I was living in chronic mold exposure for those 2 years. My thyroid made reverse T3. It ate all of my muscle away in a matter of a week because the doctors put me on the wrong medication that converted. I had to figure that out. I had to actually tell them how to put me on medication and how to do it so I wouldn't convert. I'm MTHFR, so I had to learn how to detox my body, get my body out of it. And my dog even almost died from the mold that we were living in. It took me a while because I went from expanded diet back down to living off of white rice and chicken, and even got to the point where I was down to carnivore. So I had to figure out what was going on with my body. I had to heal my thyroid. I had to get the mold out of me. I had to basically baby my food back in one ingredient at a time because I couldn't even do fiber. So 2-3 blueberries at a time. And it was one of the hardest things coming from so much food fear. And after spending your whole life healing your body, feeling like you're back to square one. But I did it. And now I'm so grateful for it because I've worked with over 3,000 women with chronic Lyme disease, MS, mold toxicity, endometriosis. And in a matter of 12 weeks, I'm getting people out of debilitating pain, pooping again in a week, Hashimoto's antibodies disappearing because I know how to pinpoint everything. So I'm so grateful for it.
Gosh, wow. That is, your story is so amazing because again, a lot of the people that I work with are like the very hypersensitive individuals dealing with the mast cell responses and everything. And, I always love to tell people like you absolutely can heal. It's just a matter of taking time and babying it, right? Well, like you mentioned, like I love that you talked about, and I'm so sorry this happened to you, but like the 2 to 3 blueberries that you had to like incorporate at a time, like that's the pace that some people just need to go at in order, but you can absolutely get there. I mean, look at you, you're vibrant and you're like helping other people. I mean, that's absolutely incredible. So thank you for sharing your story. I'm excited to unpack some things from that.
Oh, we got so much to dive into on gut and hormones.
Oh my God, I love it. Okay, so one of the things I really wanted to chat with you about regarding that was SIBO, because I feel like SIBO gets brushed aside a little bit because I feel like people don't really realize how big of an impact it really is having on the body. Now, there's a lot of different root causes, things that can be leading to it. Clearly, you had a lot of dysbiosis. Parasites, we know, can be a root cause of it. Anything that really is going to trigger that dysbiosis or immotility really within the gut. And so I would love to just unpack SIBO with you and maybe just talk about that. So could you maybe explain to the audience, like now that you've worked with so many people, like what do you see as like some of the biggest issues that people might be, the reason they may be getting SIBO in the first place, and maybe the reason they're not recovering from it?
I have so much. I did a live on this the other day. So basically, I think the biggest 2 triggers that I see with SIBO, we have a gut motility issue. Gut motility could come from a multitude of things. Even what I see nowadays is 60% of women go undiagnosed with thyroid issues because the doctors don't run the right tests. They test your TSH and T4, not your active form T3, not reverse T3, not even your Hashimoto's antibodies. And if your thyroid's not functioning, not only does it impact your gut motility, it can impact your metabolism and ability to lose weight. So if we have slowed gut motility, we're going to have our food sitting and fermenting in the gut, and that can create that environment, as well as food poisoning is a lot of trigger for people with SIBO. But the biggest thing that I see where people get stuck is a few different things, actually. Number one, we take a breath test, which could be, a false negative because a lot of those aren't 100% accurate. But also is we only do a test for SIBO, and then we go online and we put ourselves into the bracket of SIBO, seeing all the stories of people never getting better, always relapsing, medication after medication, and our mindset sticks to that. What I do differently with my clients is I don't diagnose us as SIBO. I know it's a gut motility issue. I do run a complete GI map stool test because a lot of the times there's underlying gut issues going on. So we want to look at seeing if we have opportunistic bacteria, how our segregatory IgA, which is your gut's immune system, is, because if we don't have a resilient gut, then the bad guys in the gut are going to take over. So if you keep going on these kill protocols, you're going to be left with no good guys to fight the bad. And then all the bad guys, the SIBO, the H. pylori, the dysbiosis takes over, and you get in the cycle of kill, tests getting worse, food getting more limited, more constipation, and then you just keep repeating in this vicious cycle. And then another thing that I see is so many people self-diagnose themselves with SIBO, and they start adding in so many different herbs, berberine, and these strong things. And we don't understand that just because it's not a medication, an antibiotic, doesn't mean it's not doing harm to your gut. These herbs are very, very potent. And if you do not know what you have underlying in your gut, you can be creating more harm than good. So we get to this place where we're self-diagnosing, or we think we have it, and we're just destroying the gut with tons of herbs, and we're not focusing on the restoration. What I like to do is I like to test everything, get to the root cause, but I never start clients on a kill protocol. Everything is starting on getting our motility working again. Because if you're not pooping, you're going to relapse because your food's going to sit there and ferment. If we have SIBO, that could actually impact your DAO. That's your enzyme to break down histamine. So if we're feeling bloated, we're reacting to avocados that are higher histamine. We're having a lot of allergies. That could be something potentially going on, as well as losing my train of thought. Gut motility.
So much to unpack.
I know, there's so much with SIBO. Destroying the good, but you end up basically just weakening everything. And you have no stomach acid left to actually create that environment, which kills off SIBO. You have no good guys left to fight it. And then you didn't get to the root cause. So you're more limited and you're stuck instead of restoring. And that's why I see so many people that get in the trap of never getting away from SIBO and relapsing a lot of it. But it also is we don't want to just go take HCl, because if we have gastritis or we have H. pylori, adding an HCl could actually make you 10 times worse because it's stomach acid. It's strong and it could actually increase inflammation. So that's why never buy supplements that are on mass marketing all over Instagram with probiotics, because that could make it worse, with all these green powders and fiber supplements. They're going to leave you wasting money and feeling more bloated versus just getting the right testing done and finding the right person that's going to have more of a root cause approach and a restoration approach.
Awesome. So I'd love to break down what you mentioned so that, because you unpacked a lot of good things here.
Sorry.
So no, I love it. No, it's perfect. I just want to summarize it. Yeah, no, it's perfect. So I want to summarize it. So just so for the listeners understanding what your big approach is the breath test is great, but you also love to use like the GI map test just to be able to look at the terrain and see what other things might be coming up, see how the immune system's activated, see how bad maybe like leaky gut is, look at all the different like enzyme secretions, right? We want to see what's going on. And then focusing really on not just mass killing, right? Because oftentimes when people are, looking into new practitioners to work with, they've probably done about 10 different kill protocols. So it's about restoration and root cause and motility is what I'm kind of unpacking from what you're saying. And I really couldn't agree more. And the other piece that I will add into this too is a lot of people really struggling with motility after a lot of different protocols, a lot of dysbiosis going on. That's like 85% of how our body's really excreting toxins, right? And just getting things moving through the body. And when you have a lot of like what you mentioned, those gram-negative bacteria, lipopolysaccharides, we're seeing endotoxemia, right? Endotoxins getting produced internally. That starts to clog up our glucuronidation, sulfation, glutathione pathways in the liver. So then you have decreased ability to detoxify, and then you're not going to the bathroom. So then you just start to see this buildup. So a lot of it really, I really agree when I'm working with somebody too, I really like to actually start with, we got to support your liver. We got to support your gut motility, and we got to see where things are coming from. And I'm still personally, I'm a big fan still of identifying hydrogen, methane, hydrogen sulfide, because I think especially with that hydrogen sulfide bugger, I think that can really be like a naughty one to get after. But that's similar to my approach. So I want to make sure I'm like unpacking what you said correctly. 100%. Is that kind of what you're saying is kind of the, yeah. Okay.
And I think the one thing that we're probably both on is we have to work with your nervous system, because if we have a lot of gut issues, our nervous system, our vagus nerve we're probably that, go person, not sitting down with our food. And like all of these things need to be addressed, because we can't be in chronic stress running around and be healing our gut. That's going to put all of the blood away from your digestion and make.
Yes. I've mentioned this on a couple of these podcasts I've interviewed, but my first health issue really was dealing with SIBO, and it actually started from a concussion, which there you have it, nervous system dysregulation, right? Like right off the bat. And so I have noticed for myself, the nervous system was a really key piece for me to like work on. And so I do really appreciate you bringing that up, which is awesome. So let's talk a little bit more about the terrain, SIBO, things like that. So you mentioned a couple things let's start with the root cause, because that's that's probably the most important piece in all this, because we obviously want to get the other things moving, but we got to make sure we're figuring out and unpacking why is this happening. So you mentioned underactive thyroid being a possible issue. You mentioned obviously food poisoning, which we know is like the number one root cause or one of the biggest root causes. Nervous system dysregulation is another one. Can you talk a little bit more about maybe some other things that you typically see that might be causing a little bit of like imbalance within the gut microbiome that could be triggering SIBO, things like that might be coming up for you, so that listeners can be like, maybe that's part of my root cause. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think, 3 areas. So I work with a lot of women over 30 up into their 80s, and we're having a lot of hormone changes during that time. So I call it, we're hitting perimenopause, which is our second puberty. And perimenopause is 7 to 14 years, and our estrogen, our progesterone, testosterone, all of those hormones are changing. And when they become imbalanced, so say we have estrogen dominance, we have very low progesterone. Progesterone's our calming hormone. So if we're depleted in that, that could deal with gut motility. If we have very high estrogen dominance, like all of the things with our hormones really do matter. So I also do Dutch testing with my clients. It looks at your saliva as well as urine. And it looks at your ratios of estrogen to progesterone. If you're removing excess estrogen from the body, how our cortisol is it spiking in the middle of the night? Because your hormones, your thyroid, your gut, everything is interconnected. And I think that's why I always say I do gut focused fat loss, because a lot of clients dealing with SIBO, like of the women I work with, they're also struggling to lose weight, and they're dealing with the low energy and the brain fog and the no libido. And when we look at their hormones, or they come to me on HRT, a lot of their hormones, we got like estrogen dominance, super low progesterone. Even if they had or postmenopausal or they had a hysterectomy, we still need to look at hormones and blood work. I'm sorry, it's not enough anymore. It just looks at one point and it compares us to the unhealthy individual already. So that's one aspect that I look at, as well as mold. Mold was a big one for me. And if we're that person that's super hyperreactive, we're starting to get things like histamine issues. So runny nose, itchy skin, hives going on. Maybe also we're dealing with endometriosis, PCOS, coming back to the hormone issues. Are we living in mold? And that's more prominent, especially like Texas and Miami, or, I have a lot of women that they work in construction, and we're going to these places that have black mold and different types of molds. Like there's one that my client had that had MS, lupus, Hashimoto's, chronic gut issues. She had a type of mold that was mimicking estrogen. No one found it. She wasn't absorbing her thyroid medication. She went over a decade literally feeling like she had to pass out every day with no energy because no one addressed. And she had over 20 types of mold I found in her body. And we got everything functioning good again. So I would say we got to look at mold a little bit. We need to look at our hormones definitely, as well as we need to look at too the foods that we are eating, because that truly does matter. We can go to Europe and our food quality is going to be completely different because, they're not putting dyes and chemicals. And, now we have everything that has things to make us addicted in our food. The food quality has gone down tremendously. We're injecting things in it. Gluten and dairy could be, working against us because of the glyphosate in it. If we're just focusing on eating a very clean diet, eating a clean diet doesn't necessarily address things like our migrating motor complex. So if we're snacking all the time because we think we need to eat small meals throughout the day for a faster metabolism and all of that, we're never allowing our migrating motor complex, which is like our little house cleaners in the gut, to turn on, to come out, to clear out the bad guys. And that could actually make a profound effect on your gut microbiome. And those are just 3 other small ones that I see, but definitely a motility issue, definitely a nervous system issue going on. Big time.
Yeah, it's great you look at the environmental piece, because I see that a big part in a lot of people as well, especially because I hate to say it, but we're just living in a more increasingly polluted world, right? And then so it's just natural for us. It's not even about a question of like, oh, were you ever exposed? It's almost like, well, when were you exposed? And I don't mean that in a negative way, but it's almost just like, it's good to look into those things, especially with people with chronic gut issues and they're not getting better.
Yeah.
So no, I love that you mentioned some of these other things like the MMC, or you mentioned stomach acid earlier. So I'd love to touch a little bit on your restoration. Now, you don't need to go into like all the big details with it if you don't want to, because I know this is probably like the protocols that you have for specific clients and stuff. But could you talk a little bit more about what you like to focus on with the restoration? Because from my line of thinking, when I'm thinking of SIBO, is I'm thinking of what areas of the digestive system are not functioning optimally. Like, is it stomach acid, bile flow, the MMC, the immune system, right? Digestive enzyme secretion. I mean, those are like 5 key areas that are in place naturally to prevent SIBO. And so what are maybe some of the things that you like to support that you find to be so helpful and just starting to, before you're getting into even like any eradication of the bugs, just focusing on, yeah.
So a lot of the times the individual doesn't just have SIBO. It's like we have no gallbladder, or we have also endometriosis or Hashimoto's, or we had a hysterectomy, or we went through breast cancer. So there's a lot of things that are coupled on top of SIBO when people come to me. So it is very independent of the person. But I start all my clients off. Number one is gut motility. What can we do through nutrition? What can we do through lifestyle to help regulate our nervous system, improve our gut motility, as well as I look at food eating practices, what we're eating, when we're eating, the foods we're eating, so that we're able to overcome food fear. I don't just say, go follow a low FODMAP diet or go eat this. I give my clients more, I teach them how to regulate the blood sugar, how to get the inflammation down so that we're able to get the bloating down fast, start improving the nervous system, getting the gut motility better. And a lot of this is actually with minimal supplements, because a lot of the times we're very reactive and you're coming to me with the whole supplement cabinet, I say, taking berberine and, the magnesium citrates and the probiotics, trying to do everything to just move the needle, yet feeling worse. So I would say less is more, but I'm able, through setting up my client's diet, working on their liver, definitely addressing things like low stomach acid, the way we're eating, the nervous system regulation. I had one client, no gallbladder, chronic pain all the time with stomach cramps. Within 3 days of following my plan, she's having 3 complete bowel movements. And she was like about to cry on the phone today on our Zoom, because she's like, they feel so euphoric. Like it's like the perfect poop. And I haven't had it. And when you are dealing with SIBO and it's more constipation leaning and you can't go to the bathroom, you know how happy you will be if you're freaking pooping, let alone pooping up to 3 times a day. It feels good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know nothing feels as good as like a complete bowel movement, honestly. And it's people listening to this that might not be in the health world are just going to be like, what are you saying? But honestly, it's true. And it's the same thing with with everyone that's dealing with anything that's causing dysmotility. I mean, oh my gosh, it's just you'll feel toxic if you're not going to the bathroom regularly, right? Because like we talked about earlier, it's our main mechanism of excretion. And so, yeah, that's wonderful. That's so great to hear.
Yeah. And then when I do get my clients' tests back, I'm very strategic with what I do to them. So it's not like, let's go on a very heavy kill protocol. It's let's look at where we're at and what we actually need to do. I'm through less is more. I had a client come to me for over 10 years on 80 plus supplements. She had C. diff, crazy H. pylori, around 5 other type of gut infections. She was working with a top doctor. They never addressed her diet. They never addressed her nervous system. None of that. I got her down to 5 supplements in a matter of a month. Her C. diff came negative. Amazing. Yeah. And it was through I think we only had her on 1 herb. So it's really about being strategic, but what I don't do, and this is going to be the opposite, is I never bring in your basic gut healing right away. Like bone broths, those are high histamine. Fermented foods are high histamine. Probiotics I don't bring in immediately, because for someone that's hyperreactive and we have so much fear of food and we're not pooping, these can make you feel 10 times worse. And we need to get your body to actually feel safe and you to trust the process and start feeling better and going to the bathroom before we layer these things in. And we titrate very slowly. Just because that dose is on the bottle does not mean that's your dose.
I love that. And this kind of just leads into talking a little bit more around the histamine connection and what's going on with, a lot of people dealing with mast cell activation syndrome, because that's a big thing that we're seeing nowadays. A lot of people just being more hyper reactive. So you mentioned earlier regarding lots of gut inflammation, we're naturally going to see a decrease in that enzyme DAO that helps to break down histamine. So that's definitely playing a part. But what are maybe some of the top reasons that you see people are dealing with histamine or mast cell activation syndrome?
Yeah. So few different things. Number one, mold. Mold is a big trend that I see with my clients with big MCAS, as well as there are different types of bacteria in the gut. I find these out on my GI map stool test that actually are histamine producing. So we could either be very low in DAO and just supplementing with DAO, guys. It's going to address a symptom. It's not going to get to the root. We could be potentially living in mold, or our body could be colonized by mold. Two different things. very two different things. I was colonized by mold. And then the other aspect is, well, when did I just say a second ago? I'm losing my focus.
You were talking about DAO, and then you were talking about mold, and then it was, what are some reasons you see people struggling a lot with mold, with
having
histamine
the
issues?
Specific types of bacteria that are increasing the histamine in the body as well. And when we get to a place too, I like to look at it as a bucket. So if we think about it, a normal person could have a big hole in the bucket. So if they're eating these higher histamine foods, which, I mean, beef is aged 30 days, ground beef aged 30 days, sitting on the shelf is very high histamine. So when we're overloading that histamine bucket, and we normally have the DAO to break it down, your bucket is not going to overflow. But with someone that does not have the DAO or has the overload of toxins in their body or bacteria producing the histamines or is living in mold and maybe has the MTHFR genetic mutation and their liver is not actually clearing it. A lot of people with histamine issues or even mold toxicity, they don't sweat. You could go run a marathon and you ain't gonna sweat because your detox pathways are not working. Think about it as you have like a little tiny hole in your bucket. So you could be putting all those histamines in, but you're clearing it so much slower. So what happens is that histamine bucket overflows, and then you're having all of your reactions. And stress, chronic stress can make it overflow. Our body's ability to detox, if we're not pooping, if we're living in the mold exposure, the liver, all of that.
I actually had just did a post yesterday about things that mimic like mold colonization in the gut. And because I just find it like so fascinating, like, you know, because a lot of people, like you had mentioned this earlier, where you're like, a lot of people are self-diagnosing as SIBO, right? Because they look pregnant or they have like really crazy bloating or they're really constipated. So they're like, I must have SIBO. But, you know, the post was almost to kind of talk about what are a lot of the things that people can have that mimic that bloating, right? And mast cell activation syndrome, I feel like, is such a big part of it, right? Like you've been touching on, if the gut's inflamed naturally, we're going to have those mast cells just going crazy. And then SIBO, of course, candida, which we haven't really talked a whole lot about yet. But then I was actually talking, and I don't know how much you've dived into this, but actinomycetes, which is actinos, which is a bacteria that grows along in water damaged buildings. But the interesting thing about it is that it can be in the gut. And it's so fascinating. Its favorite food, and I might be saying this wrong, is chitin or something, but that's actually what mold produces. And if you're colonized with mold, your body naturally will, if actinos has been growing in that building too, then it's going to be inside your system as well. And that's just another bacteria, another thing that we're kind of adding to this dysbiosis. And so it's going to naturally want to be there because its mold is going to be producing its literal favorite food. And so again, I'm so excited to be chatting with you because I feel like there's people, they start to see, oh, I have dysbiosis, I have candida, I have H. pylori. Oh my God, I had a parasite show up. I had all these different things. So after everything that we've started talking about, can you boil it down for people to, if they're having all these different things, what in your mind would be the first thing that people need to focus on? I know we've talked a little bit about motility and nervous system regulation, but maybe we can talk about, you know, what you've been saying with like the different things that pop up on a GI map, like if they have high histamine producers, what does that mean? Like, how could they support themselves with that? And the second thing is what type of testing maybe would be the best thing for them to look into? And then if they're working with their practitioner, like what are things they should be bringing up to their practitioner to really look into?
I want to start off with the nose. Don't buy any supplements off of the internet that say they're going to make you not bloated. Fiber supplements, green powders, probiotics, anything that's going to make you feel like this is a fast fix for you, do not buy it. Don't waste your money on the biome test, the food sensitivity test, because if you got a lot of gut issues going on, you're probably going to be, I'll say it this way, if you got a lot of gut issues going on and you run the wrong food sensitivity test, you already got leaky gut. Those foods can show up fine on there, but if the bacteria in the gut are fermenting those foods, you may still react to them. So that's a waste of the money. So I would say those are my big no's. Don't waste your money on any of those. I would find that right practitioner that, number one, is not going to put you on with a salesperson and then try to trap you into something. You want to find someone that's going to be very strategic and is going to work with you on the nutrition, the nervous system regulation, not just, okay, we're going to test you and we're going to address the test, because it's not about treating the test. It's about treating the individual and making it work with your lifestyle so you can heal. That's the reason why you're not getting better. Top tests. So if I have a client with chronic gut issues, just gut issues, GI map stool test with H. pylori add-on. If we have hormone issues, inability to lose weight, brain fog, fatigue, HRT, things like that, Dutch test all day, every day. And then when it comes to mold, I love to run not just GI maps, but a mycotoxin test and an oats test, because that will show us, what other bacteria do we have present? Because if we have mold, we probably have yeast and bacteria and that going on, as well as the oats will show us if we're colonized by the mold too. And then I, without a doubt, at every client, make sure that they have the right thyroid panel, because that's just something in my practice that I'm seeing so predominant that's just a non-negotiable for me when it comes to this point. So those are the no's. Those are the tests that I recommend. I think like the biggest questions to always ask your practitioner too is like, to me, you need to find somebody that has gone through it themselves, because anybody can have knowledge, have education, pay to go to school. But if someone does not live what you lived through, being down, like I was down to, 1 to 2 foods at a point, and I would even react to those. Traveling 2+ hours, spending over close to $200 on colonics every single week just to go to the bathroom. Waking up in the middle of the night to take laxatives if I forgot, because if I don't go, I would be in such chronic pain where my jogging pants would hurt. Yeah. I missed my sister's wedding in Greece because I had such severe MCAS that I was living off of lamb. Lamb is low histamine, but I had to buy my lamb and my bison flash frozen after slaughter, because I couldn't even buy meat at the store, or else I would break out in hives and eczema from head to toe. So I couldn't bring that to Greece with me for a week. So it was like I was living since a little girl with chronic health issues. Someone could have the education, but they're not going to be able to emotionally understand what you went through and help you with the food aspect, which is a really big aspect of it, and understand what you need to do when, the magnesium citrates and you're on the Miralax and the Linzess and all these things are not working. So I think that's like a big question to ask your practitioners, like, have they gone through it? I think that's like in their way that they work with individuals. Like, are we going to run tests and then do a supplement protocol for it? Like, are you going to help me with the nutrition? I have a busy lifestyle. If I'm traveling, are you going to help me implement it? Because I have a lot of busy people. I teach them how to make this relatable to where they can get their life back, to where they can travel with their kids, to where they can eat at restaurants, where they can go to hotels, and make it sustainable for them versus restriction. I bring all my fun recipes in from when I was raw vegan to make food fun for them again with the limited diet as we expand their diet. Don't just go to someone that's going to say, here's a low FODMAP diet or a SIBO diet and follow this, because you could still react to foods on that. But someone that's gone through it can literally look at your diet, and I can literally pinpoint X, Y, and Z. These are the 3 things we need to swap and change, and have you pooping and bloating 70% gone tomorrow. And I think that's what makes it very different, is the person that went through it with the education and doesn't just treat the paper and treats the individual.
I'm such a big fan of what you just said regarding the diet piece, because again, everything that's on a low histamine diet, right? There can be things in there that person might be reactive to. So I'm personally also not a fan of just saying, here's like, this is basic. Because you're reacting to some of these histamine foods, you should go full on this.
No
or
histamine.
because, exactly. Or because maybe you react to some of these higher FODMAP foods, you should go low FODMAP. Like, I'm actually not a fan of that either. I think it's very important to look at the nutrition aspect. And I love that that's a piece that you keep coming back to, because I think that's so important for people to understand and realize that when they're working with somebody, that is such an important, food is so healing. And that's such an important piece that it shouldn't just be supplement buckets. It should be a food connection too. So let's talk a little bit about elimination diets. So can you talk about your view regarding, we've already kind of touched a little bit on it, but let's dive a little bit deeper into that, and like maybe when you see them backfire and how you maybe go around, you touch on it a little bit, but just maybe a little bit more in depth regarding when and how you're kind of talking people through their diet.
Absolutely. So elimination diets have a time and a place. Here's the thing. I'm going to use the low FODMAP diet and carnivore diet because I feel like they're the two talked about. Carnivore is the ultimate elimination diet. I did it. You're cutting out every vegetable. When you go low FODMAP, you're cutting out, what the bacteria ferment on. So if you have an imbalance in the gut microbiome, when you eat fiber, when you eat those FODMAP foods, you may feel like you have more symptoms because the dysbiosis in the gut is feeding on those fibers, creating the gas and the bloating and making you uncomfortable. So when you cut those out, you may feel better. You may have less symptoms, but you can go on that diet for years. Yes, you may have less symptoms, but if you don't address the root cause, a couple things are going to happen. Number one, you add the food back in, you're reactive again. So you get very limited on your diet. Another thing is this happens. I've had people come to me down to just cottage cheese and their body's swelling because when you cut out so much food, you're losing your diversity in the gut. So that is going to make your microbiome very less diverse. And we want diversity to grow your healthy garden. You're going to be able to heal. I finally healed my body when I expanded my diet. My clients come to me on minimal foods, even sometimes a handful or less foods, but we're able to expand them to 50 to 100 foods in a matter of 12 weeks with no fear on the foods. I even had people come to me vegetarian, afraid of meat because they feel like the protein is sitting in their stomach and it's fermenting. Hello, low stomach acid. Like when we get that gut functioning, they're able to expand, feel better, body composition changes. So I think when we go on these extreme diets, we don't look at the root cause of why we are reactive and the long-term consequences of being stuck on that diet for a while. Like you're not going to have your life. You're not going to be able to go eat out with family. You're going to be making your gut microbiome way less diverse. And you're going to get yourself stuck.
There's such a social aspect to it, isn't it? It's like when you start to be on an elimination diet and you're on it for so long, like you mentioned, you might not be able to go out to eat with friends or family or your loved ones. And then there's that like social anxiety that comes alongside of it too, which then there you go, it's hitting the nervous system dysregulation piece. So, I mean, it just kind of all ties in together. So thank you for touching on that. That's awesome. Would love to hear a little bit more regarding nervous system dysregulation, and then I'd love to end with peptides. So with the nervous system, what are some key things that you're taught? Because everyone seems to love like maybe something.
Girl.
Yeah. Oh, acupuncture. I love it. I have a cool story with someone with acupuncture. Yes.
Right?
Yes.
I've done it all. I'm TM certified. I've done the brain mapping, you name it. Acupuncture has been a game changer for me. I do have some clients that have a lot of trauma, and I do help them find help with EMDR as well. Okay. So EMDR for a lot of my individuals with chronic trauma. I love acupuncture. I love focusing on our daily wins. I love doing different breathing techniques with my clients, 4-6 breathing, box breathing. Everything to get our.
I love acupuncture. I had a client who was so reactive to absolutely everything. She was having actual multiple seizures a day, mold illness, all this stuff. And acupuncture, that's what I had told her. I said, okay, let's try acupuncture and for her nervous system just to re-regulate. And it was the biggest game changer. And it's wonderful. So that's very cool. I love that you brought acupuncture up. I could talk about that all day.
I still go every week.
That's amazing. I know I need to get back into going. That's awesome. This is my reminder to do so.
Yeah, this is it.
Well, great. Well, let's go ahead and maybe we'll kind of close out talking a little bit about peptides and when, that's becoming more mainstream. A lot of people are talking so much about peptide use, this and that. So when and where do you find maybe the best time to utilize them if you think that they're appropriate? Do you use them with every client? Well, can you kind of walk us through a little bit like your viewpoint and what you find best with?
So I do use peptides, but I never use GLP-1s with my clients. Mm-hmm. Peptides that I would utilize, and this is very on a case-to-case basis. It's a rarity that I throw them in there because I heal through so many other aspects first. But NAD, glutathione, BPC 157. But the thing is with peptides, they do not get to that root cause. So it's like if you have MTHFR and your liver is not functioning, doing glutathione injections may be too potent for you. And that's not going to heal the gut. Injecting BPC, I use it more for clients that are coming to me that have torn labrums and chronic tennis elbow as a way of reducing inflammation paired with TB500. So while peptides are this big thing on the market, they're not the end all be all. And if we're struggling with weight loss and we do have gut issues and we turn towards GLP-1s, well, GLP-1s actually slow down your gut motility. So the amount of women that I have come to me that lost the weight, gained back more, and now they have constipation and all these gut issues, like that's just not, to me, the best route. They work on your leptin, your ghrelin, your hunger and satiety cues, so you feel fuller, longer, more satiated. But what happens when you get off of it? And I think that's the big thing. More muscle loss, since our diet wasn't there, our training wasn't there, slowed gut motility. So to me, peptides, I feel like there could be a falling out in the next few years of everything going on. They're a trend right now. People are throwing them out there, but I don't think there's enough research out there.
Have you seen the research done by, my gosh, I'm totally blanking on his name. He is a fabulous mast cell researcher, but he studied low dose, like very low dose GLP-1, like 0.25.
I have one mast cell client who does really good on a GLP-1 for her symptoms. That's like the positive I did see.
Yeah. I've seen it just with a few clients as well. And so, yeah, but I agree. We're still waiting on like more research and this and that. But I even had interviewed somebody who the interview's not out yet, who dealt with horrible mast cell activation syndrome. And her first thing that helped her out was actually nicotine patch. So that was the thing that she had said. And then she did low dose GLP-1, which brought her to about like 90% better. But of course, this is my thought process around everything as well, is exactly what you're saying, is you still need to really address a lot of the root causes of everything, right? And then there can be like a time and place for these to help mitigate that inflammation and then just help with the healing process if we've started to address some of the other things as well. But I love what you mentioned regarding the other peptides and this and that, and that's awesome. But it's all about root cause, right?
And it's like, put your money where it's going to maximize your results.
Exactly, for sure. Well, Elizabeth, this was so informative and helpful. Thank you so much for the wealth of information you shared. If there's anything else you wanted to leave the audience with, please let them know. And then also where people can find you and work with you, find your programs and everything.
Absolutely. Just the mind goes with the body. So don't let someone say you're broken. I hate this one word, complex, because so many people said, you're so complex. You know what? You're not complex. You're not crazy. You just need to find that right person, that angel moment to help you heal. And once you find that person, you can heal. I have people healing up into their 80s after going through so much. I am all over the internet. So Elizabeth Aylor Fitness on my Instagram and my YouTube. I have so much on gut health and hormones on my YouTube. And if you ever need help, you could just DM me on Instagram, ready, and I will personally reach out to you. And I know we got some freebies and stuff that we're going to throw in below in the show notes too.
Yes, I will make sure to put everything in the show notes. Oh my gosh. Well, thank you, Elizabeth. It was so great chatting with you.
Thank you for having me, Stephanie.